Everybody, welcome to our weekly 30-minute workshop. Appreciate you being here. My name is Trey Gonzalez. I'm a product manager here at Variphy, and I'll be your host for today's live webinar. And we're also joined by my good buddy, Victor Verba, systems engineer here at Variphy. How you doing, Vic?
I'm doing well, Trey. I'm doing well. Snow's coming down. It's getting a little cold, but it's winter.
Total opposite from me. I'm here in Florida. It's a
Okay.
beautiful 62 degrees.
I might be a little jealous.
Windows are open, hoodie is on. It's a good day. Sweet. So for today's session, we're going to cover everything that's new in 15.4, Variphy 15.4. We got a new version coming out, and we're really excited about it. We're also really excited to get started with a demonstration, but first, let me walk you through the agenda for today's webinar. Make sure I got the right slide. There it is. So we're going to kick it off with a quick overview about Variphy, what it is we do, and then we'll jump into a demo where Vic is going to showcase Variphy 15.4. After the demo, we'll pause for Q&A and get some questions answered. So if during the demo you have any questions, please be sure to ask them in the chat. I'll be monitoring those, and I'll make sure to get all the questions answered after the demonstration. Lastly, we're going to reward one lucky attendee here with a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang tight until the end and see if you got lucky. Now, a little bit about us. Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution for UC Analytics. We provide industry-leading dashboards and call reporting for Cisco Unified Communication Manager, Cisco Contact Center Express, Cisco Cubes, Zoom Phone, and Webex Calling Analytics. We support all of these platforms alongside a suite of management tools such as remote phone control, macros, change management, and DID management, which are all focused towards CUCM, Cisco Call Manager. But today we are going to be focusing on what's new in Variphy 15.4. So again, if you have any questions about those features that I listed, or if you happen to have an interest in taking them out for a test drive, feel free to message us in the chat panel. Or if you're already a member of the Variphy community, meaning you've been in contact with us before, you can reach out to your Variphy account manager for some more information. Now, one more quick thing before we kick off. Wanted to mention Variphy does offer a managed consulting service where our systems engineers team actually engages with you on a one-on-one basis. We remotely provide consulting, unassisted reporting, dashboarding, configuration, and system monitoring assistance. Again, this is a service that provides you a dedicated Variphy systems engineer to do all of the heavy lifting for you, giving you a completely hands-off experience. So for more information, please contact us, and we'd be glad to speak more in depth about these managed services. Now let's get into the demo.
All right, excellent. Thank you guys for joining us. Again, what we're going to do is take a little bit of a sneak peek into version 15.4. We are expecting 15.4 to come out next week, so keep your eye out for that. We expect that to be out around the 18th. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and get started, we got a little bit for everybody here, is I'm going to get started with a little bit of our Cisco Call Manager changes. The first thing I'm going to focus in on is some changes that we did to help identify voicemail calls. So our system by default will look at voicemail ports within your call manager. If you are using a SIP trunk to your auto attendant or your messaging system, we do have to add the voicemail device or your SIP gateway that leads to voicemail into Variphy so it could recognize that it's a voicemail. That's always been the case. Most people have that configured already. That's how they're identifying voicemail. We do have some customers that use their auto attendant for things that other than voicemail, or they route things over an SME or a particular trunk that may do voicemail as well as some other functions. So it was getting difficult to discern what was actually going to an auto attendant versus what may have been going to somewhere else within their organization. So in order to address that, what we did is we added the ability to not only identify the voicemail the way that we do now by using the device name, but also allowing you to configure the voicemail by identifying a directory number or a series or set of directory numbers. So in this case right now, we have my voicemail device configured for CUCI Variphy. And what you'll notice when I ran my quick report right here is this was my voicemail port, this is my voicemail device, and using our call scenarios column, I could see that all of these calls here are registering to voicemail. Now, let's say, for example, this device goes to multiple different entities, some of them being voicemail, some of them not being voicemail, but my directory numbers or the ports that are being used to send those calls off to my voicemail are all the same, or maybe there's a couple different ports. What we can now do within Variphy is under our CDR devices, we can navigate over to our list and edit either our current voicemail or add another one. In this case, I'm just going to edit mine. The device name, when we're using the directory number, is will be overridden by the directory number. So I can name this pretty much anything I want, and then identify my directory number here as now using my voicemail. All right. You can select a partition that's unique to your voicemail if that also helps narrow down which ones are going to your voicemail. If you leave this as just select or nothing in there, it is strictly going to look at all partitions for anything going over this that particular directory number, and will identify all those calls as going to voicemail. So now what I've done is I've changed my device name to test within the Variphy application. If I go ahead and rerun this, and let's just say we're going to go ahead and check this out for the previous day, what you're going to see here are, again, we're no longer using this device name. We are now using the directory number to identify all calls, and these are still going to voicemail. So when you have a setup where maybe you have multiple devices that manage your auto attendant or your voicemail with a single port that they're all routing to, or you have a single device that routes to different entities or locations, maybe they're not all voicemail, maybe they're going to an SME, which then the SME sends them out to voicemail, and you want to be able to identify those on a per cluster basis. By adding the directory DN that is your voicemail port, you'll be able to go ahead and now identify those clearly as voicemail. So great addition there for some of our larger customers. Definitely when you're working with an SME. SME is routing the calls to the auto attendant, not the individual cluster. This is a great way to get the individual cluster on track and identify those calls actually going to the auto attendants or the voicemail system. All right. Another great feature that we've added, and this is a little bit more behind the scenes, so I'll probably talk a little bit about more than have anything to show. Originally, or previously prior to version 15.4, if the Variphy service was shut down and it was, let's say, in the middle of processing, I don't know, 10,000 rows of data, what would happen is it would stop right in the middle of processing those files or that data. It would hold the file. And then when the Variphy system comes back up, it would start processing that entire file again. That would result in what we'll call duplicates because it already processed, let's say, 5,000 of those 10,000 records. Now, Variphy managed the duplicates, so you didn't have a bunch of duplicate data in your system when you were running your reports or duplicate counts. We were able to weed out and remove those duplicates, but it could be a pretty cumbersome process for the database engine as well as Variphy to have to go through 5,000 rows of data that are all duplicates. Compare those into the database, find out they're duplicates, and then reject the record that is the duplicate. So what we've done in version 15.4 is we resolved that with a lot of back-end work and some caching. We're no longer going to go ahead and rehash that whole file. The data is going to be stored appropriately and cached. So if the system is shut down in the middle of processing, it's no longer going to start from the very beginning. It's going to start from where it left off, complete the file, and really negate having to do and worry about duplicates. This was not a pretty consistent problem, but you may have noticed it if you shut down your Variphy system for any reason. Maybe you're doing an upgrade or you had to do a restart and it came back up a little bit slower, and maybe your dashboard's loaded a little bit slower upon upkeep. A lot of that was due to the fact that the system was purging and getting rid of the duplicate call records. So now you should see a little bit more responsiveness after you have to start a Variphy system or restart a Variphy system, and if it was in the middle of processing a large sum of data. All right, again, a little bit more back end type changes, but a great fix, and I think something that we'll definitely see some uptime as far as once those systems restart. I'm going to move away from call manager data a little bit, and I'm going to take a look at Webex. One of the things that we've added in 15.4 is the ability to support global APIs. We have a lot of customers that are not centrally located in the United States. They may be in EMEA or APAC, and they're using Webex. There are different APIs associated to Webex for the various regions, as well as with government entities. So with Variphy 15.4, you do now have the ability to go ahead and select the API region. Default being US, Europe, Canada, as well as government. If you're a government FedRAMP agency, we do now support the API for government. These are the APIs available for Webex right now. So you'll notice that we've also added the ability to add custom APIs. We know that Webex will always be evolving. We're always going to evolve with it. But this is going to give us the ability to put in a custom API if Webex releases something that we're not quite ready for. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and talk about is going to be for our Zoom customers. In Zoom support, let me switch over to a Zoom customer cluster here. We now have the ability to do CDR alerting. What does that mean? That means much like our call manager and our Webex customers, we have the ability to create alerts based on call data information. We now have that for our Zoom customers as well. This has been a big ask for a little while now. So what we can do from a alarm or an alert perspective is, one, we can now from a Zoom perspective log into your Zoom account, create things like 911 alerts. Let's go ahead and create one, international call alerts. So what we're going to do here is create a very general alert. I'll set it for all business hours or all hours. And you're going to notice this screen acts a lot like a report acts. We're going to create a search set. This search set is going to help define what we're going to alert on. And we'll just say 911 calls. Next thing we do is we pick the criteria we want to search for. Much like you would see in a report, we can isolate these calls and create these alerts for different areas, different locations. So let's say, for example, I want to pick on a particular location here, and I want to have 911 calls for, I don't know, we'll say California. All right. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to set up the dialed number or the called numbers. In this case, I'm going to say 911. Now, next thing we do is we select our delivery. We can deliver that via email, or we can deliver that via Webex chatbot. And we select our email recipients here from our drop-down list. And now what we have is an automated alert that will send out to myself for 911 calls coming from a California location, and generate those alerts anytime we receive a 911 call. Much like reports, there's a lot of different ways to be able to define and add different information. Perhaps rather than looking at a location, I want to pick on one of my particular sites and have this site go to that site manager, depending on where they are. You can also compound different information like calling, called used, things like call duration. Perhaps I only want to see 911 calls over let's say 20 seconds in duration. Or maybe I just want them to be greater than or equal to 1 second, so I know that they are connecting. Again, keep in mind this alert has the same criteria that you're going to see in a lot of your searching, so a lot of your searching can also be set up around alerts. Another very common one is things like international calls. I may want to go ahead and trigger an alert on an international call, anything that starts with a 011. But maybe I don't want to see every international call, but I probably want to know if it's, let's say, over 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So we can go ahead and do something like greater than 3,600 seconds for 011. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to go ahead and determine who I want this delivered to. Maybe that's the particular site manager. If we add site in here, or location manager. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and add site. And we'll just pick Birmingham. So now I want this message to be delivered to the Birmingham manager if anybody places an international call that is over 3,600 seconds in length. So alerts have been around in the Variphy system for quite some time. We do have a lot of knowledge-based articles as well as webinars on setting up alerts and different types of alerts. So feel free to check those out. If you want some additional training on how to set up alerts, we're more than happy to do that. Go ahead and ping us in the chat channel or open up a support ticket. We're more than happy to jump on the line and give you a hand. Idea here is new with 15.4, you now have that capability within Zoom calling. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and pop over to, I'm going to move away from our CUCM and Webex, and we're going to move a little bit over to our Cisco Cube here. We have a lot of customers, especially our governments and really around the federal institutions, starting to move over to IPv6. So we are very aware of that cutover and the requirements around that. So we're starting to see that with cube data and IPv6 addresses coming through in call data as well as cube data. So with 15.4, we have added the ability to support IPv6 IP addresses in the remote media address. Essentially, the way that we are designed is we were designed around Cisco logic that says remote media address will be X number of characters at max. With IPv6 being mandated to federal organizations, that's obviously going to go over a standard, 10 or 20 character limitation. So we have increased the size of this to support IPv6 IP addresses. So all of our federal customers getting ready to move over to IPv6, your cube data will be supported, and with version 15.4, you'll have no problem reporting those IPv6 IP addresses. All right. A couple more changes. This is a little bit more global, not necessarily geared towards CUCM, Webex, Zoom, or Cube, or UCCX, or any of the above. Is something that I think is a great feature. We've had a lot of customers asking for it, and that's the ability to kind of customize your default search set when you first pop into Variphy. So what does that mean? Everybody that first pops in, when you log into the Variphy system, if you're looking at a Cisco call manager, your original called party number was always the filter that you had reportability on, or was the default search criteria in history search. Same thing when you went to Cube or you went to Zoom, there was a default option in there that you searched for. We found that a lot of organizations really kind of had their own default. Some people wanted to search for all numbers right off of the bat. So when somebody logged in, rather than just looking at original called party number, they wanted to make sure that they had the filter for calling original or final called party number. In other words, they want to be able to find all of the numbers. We have other customers that are very organization oriented. So they did a lot more searching on things like departments, originating and terminating departments, or dialed departments. And they really wanted that as their first search criteria. So what we added with Variphy 15.4 is the ability to define what you want your default search criteria to be. So if you move up to the gear on the right-hand side, under the application settings, when you scroll down about a quarter of the way down the page, you're going to see a new section on here for call history settings. This is now going to let you define what you want your default search history to be. So let's say, for example, I want this to be the calling original or final called party number, which is a very common reporting filter for a lot of customers. I could build that into my CUCM definitions. Same thing with Zoom. Maybe instead of looking at just caller numbers, I want this to be the caller or called number. Perhaps same thing with Cube. I may want the calling and final called party number. But maybe with Webex, I rely more on my organizational entities or my locations or user types. You now have the ability to go ahead and decide what you want your default search criteria to be when anybody logs into the main screen. So taking a look at what we did here, you can see now my default is calling original or final called party number. If I went to my Webex, you're going to see my Webex is now the calling or called location or site. So great way to be able to go ahead and really kind of customize and cater the system to all your end users and how you guys use reporting. We know that not everybody relies on original called party number or calling party number. So you now have the ability to kind of cater what everybody's going to see. Now, another benefit of this is, one, where I was before under application settings, that is a global change. So if you make that change, that will be for everybody within the system. We recognize that not everybody in your organization uses the system the same. They may not all want calling original or final called party number, or perhaps you just don't want to make a drastic change that it's going to affect everybody's screen right off the bat. You do have the ability to go ahead and customize for your own search criteria as well. So I can override the system default and say, you know what, I don't like the system default. I'm going to use original called party pattern or something like that. So not only is this a system-wide setting, but this is also a user setting by just going into your My Account settings up at the top right-hand corner. All right. So I think this is a great addition. We see a lot of customers just wanting to put in their own defaults, really make the system theirs and own it for their own criteria and how they do their searching. This is a great way to get to that. And this is really a precursor to some other changes that'll be coming down the pipe over the next few releases as well. Last but not least, you may notice this, you may not. We talked a little bit about Zoom alerts and CDR alerts being added for Zoom phones and how to configure those. Some other changes that this is more system-wide, and this is probably a little bit more cosmetic. So you may notice it, you may not, but there's better alignment in the alerts that are being sent now. Columns are better aligned and centered, where before you may have some, that were left justified and right justified. The alert email is also going to include a CDR report as well, so it will get a report not only of the information that's going to be contained in the email, but also a PDF that you can go ahead and download that's going to contain the details of the calls as well. So again, a little bit more cosmetic, but if you are receiving alerts for anything already set up in your system, after loading 15.4, you may notice some enhancements in the alerting part. And that's going to wrap up what we have available for 15.4. Trey, do we have any questions out there?
You know what? We don't. But I think it's a testament to how good of a job you've done explaining everything to me.
Oh, well, thank you.
I've been sitting on that one. I'm watching the Q&A, and it's just been empty. And I'm like, Vic's killing it. He's doing a great job.
Well, much appreciated.
Yeah, of course. And to anybody else here listening, if you guys do have questions or if thoughts come later, again, feel free to contact us. You can hit us up through the website, or if you already have a connect at the company, you can feel free to contact them as well. So with that, just want to remind you guys to register for our upcoming workshop, which will be next week on January 17th. The topic for that discussion is a deep dive into hunt groups and call queues in Webex Calling. It's going to be January 17th at the usual time, and you're going to have John and Mike on that one there. And so with that, I do conclude today's webinar. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. If you haven't already, feel free to add me or Vic on LinkedIn. My name is Trey Gonzalez, and this is Victor Verba. We'd love to connect with you. So have a great rest of your week, and thanks again.
Thank you, guys.